Yep, cool, guys. So I think we'll just get right into the nitty-gritty. So QSR is quite a different space. I think there's a lot of stigma about it as well, and lots of challenges. So what kind of challenges do we face in QSR, say, compared to other industries?
I think some of the challenges is that for QSR it's low margin, so it must be high volume. So it's about making sure you get that right balance of being able to still make profit off a low margin, and to achieve that it has to be high volume, but while doing so you must still produce a high quality product and deliver that and have great customer service. And there's always, just because it's a lower price margin, there's still very much high expectations of delivering great service and a great product, and it's about how you're managing that within your customers and with your employees, so everyone's on the same page, everyone's aligned with that and delivering that essentially.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much spot on. I reckon that one of the hardest things though is trying to manage expectations, manage your entire customer life cycle in a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, especially at McDonald's. You know, you have 2 minutes 45 to get a car from arriving at the drive-through to having their food and leaving. So your entire customer life cycle is super quick. You don't have 25, 30 minutes to talk to somebody on the phone about what their problems are. So speed.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is a pretty big challenge. You do need, like Anthony touched on it before, to have a high volume mentality, just firstly to get sales in the door, to produce a productive store as well. And that's coming from a manager perspective as well. How do we instill like a high volume mentality for success into a space where it's dominated by lots of young adults who may not want to be there, apathetic teenagers. It's a different space. Like how can you instill that good mentality?
I think it comes from the energy and the culture that you need to basically deliver. I mean, with high volume, obviously becomes, in Domino's in particular, and I'm sure Macca's is similar. You get these peaks that come in, especially during the dinner rush, and special occasion nights, and it's about breeding that culture of that intensity and that energy that it can create in a team. It actually almost creates a bonding process with your team members when you go through a really crazy night and you're short on staff, and it actually creates a culture and it brings people closer together. And I think that's building that is what helps build teams and which creates a positive culture. It's almost like they come through a battle and they've come out unscathed and like, okay, cool, we can do this. And then that excitement breeds in. They get excited to come to work. They get excited to work with their fellow employees and their colleagues. And I think that culture that gets bred helps drive our business and helps bring that positive energy to customers as well, because they want to be able to succeed. The employee wants to succeed. They want to be able to deliver a great product. They want to see customers happy while all this is happening. So I think that's part of what makes it so successful, what enables us to have this high volume mentality.
Yeah, so I mean, McDonald's is about numbers through and through. There's numbers for everything. Everywhere you look, there's another number. And using leaderboards, that sort of thing, using directed targets, you can convince a 15-year-old who doesn't care that, if you get this number from 10 to 7, this positive outcome will happen. You get people driven into a certain small aspect of it, and then the whole machine kind of works really well together after that. Like nationwide leaderboards of this store made this many burgers in 15 minutes. Can you beat that tonight? There's a big rush coming on. Can you get above that? Trying to motivate people to competitiveness, using competitiveness as a driver to get people more motivated.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. I like what you said before about, I feel like sometimes you feel you're very much in the trenches with your employees in QSR. That's in QSR though. How can we translate that into maybe a different industry as well? Obviously it's different, maybe the sense of urgency may not be there. We may not always have numbers to motivate. Are there any other methods that you can, instill still that good culture, without those circumstances?
I think it's more challenging aspects. I think people generally like to be challenged, and when you take your team on a journey with a problem or an outcome, help them. And it goes back to similar to what Gary was saying in his presentation around, it's not just one small challenges so you're doing a big project and a problem comes up, instead of your team member going to you, oh, what do I do here? How do I solve for this? Instead of giving them the answer, work with them. Come together as a team. Help them discover the right approach. Sometimes you don't, even as a manager, don't know the right answer to the question, but it's about how you go about solving that. And I think when you bring team members in and make them feel a part of solving that solution, then again, creates the same thing, creates the same bond, it achieves the same goal, and it makes them feel part of the solution, a part of what you're delivering. And I think that's really, really, really important to be able to build a successful team and to build that mentality.
I agree with that completely. That's pretty much spot on.
I think we'll give Anthony a gold star for that one. Okay, cool, awesome. We'll just move on to staff just again quickly. Touching on what I said before, like your workforce may not always be, positive towards a job, and that can lead to disengagement. It can also lead to a high turnover as well, which can, as we've all seen from previous talks, can be quite costly to the company. Is there anything that you do in particular, like yourself personally, with your own teams, on how you can minimise that staff turnover and disengagement?
I mean, QSR, looking at stores, I think high turnovers, it's inevitable. It's one of those things you just have to be able to manage and be able to deal with, and it's what you can do to be able to ease that pain. I mean, there's always going to be seasonal work. There's always going to be, people in school, unis. There's always things, just a short-term job. They need a bit of cash quickly. So I think it's just the way you manage that as a team and as a business to be able to deal with that circumstance, being able to have really, really good training programs to be able to upskill quickly and have tools to be able to shorten the learning period to achieve that. And also to be able to identify team members who they can work with to help encourage that and build that up. And I think some of those things can cross over. I mean, it's standard practice when a new team member comes into a team that usually there's an onboarding process of about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the person and what the project is and what the work will be. So I think if you take that person and if you get someone who fits into that culture, so one thing I always learned about building teams is that you can teach skill, but you can't really teach an attitude. You can't train that. So it's about getting someone with the right attitude. Might not be the most skillful person in the world, but you can always train that. You can always teach that. And if you put them in the right team, it helps build that up and build that talent. And then they become a part of that team and it grows quicker and they can achieve so much more in such a shorter amount of time.
Yeah, I think that there's always going to be that. Now it's millennials, but 20 years ago it was whatever the previous generation was. I don't know. But, I mean, you're always going to have those people who are really driven for their job and really motivated. And you're always going to have those people who aren't so much. And I think that from my time doing hiring at McDonald's, you get people who are either there for 3 days or 3 years. And if you don't really fit in with the culture, you don't really have that mentality, you tend to not stick around long because it doesn't really feel right to you. But then there's plenty of 15-year-olds I work with, 14-year-olds who were just absolutely brilliant, and you'd happily leave the store with them because they had the right mindset and they'd do the right thing and know what the outcomes they were trying to achieve and then achieve them most of the time. So it's not really about your age, it's definitely about your attitude.
That's a good point. Thanks. We'll move over on to technology. So obviously we're here for Tanda, Domino's partnership with Tanda, which we're really excited about. So Anthony, how has technology changed your workflow for Domino's over the time that you've been there?
It's a good question. So basically my background is technology. I spent 15 years in IT before I moved over into more of a management space. That's how I got my start in Domino's technology. So basically, I think it's funny because technology has had such a major impact on Domino's in particular as a QSR industry, and to the point where it's almost seen as a technology company that just happens to sell pizza with all the innovation and stuff that we do. And I think that it's had a major factor and influence on the business. I remember when we started the online platform, we were given no money because it was almost throwaway. They didn't think it was going to be successful, and literally overnight it boomed and they couldn't throw enough money at the project to be able to get it up. It's one of those things that they accidentally tripped on and basically realised that people will order pizza online, and it was a massive, massive thing for us. So I think the constant evolution of technology into the QSR industry, I think, is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I actually don't think there's any end to it. I think that it's only going to get larger, and you'll find more and more companies that will be getting on board and will be doing it as such. Look at the gig economy. It's all based around technology. So.
And obviously that can be translated across most industries. It's just you leveraging that. Dave, how about McDonald's? So they've actually built their own HR system for onboarding, I believe. Do you want to talk a bit about that and how that helps hiring and managing your own employees?
Yeah, sure. So they've changed the system to an in-house one in the last couple of years. And the system before that was this huge ERP that just handles everything for the store. But then they have the online platform that employees engage with and go there to get their roster and rewards and that sort of stuff. So being able to, all the applications come through online. Everyone has one of these accounts as soon as they apply. So the technology has really enabled them to, instead of having to actively seek out employees, it's more the other way around, where the employees are seeking out them. And I'm sure that every employee who applies at McDonald's has also applied to Domino's and to 100 other places, especially if they're just looking for a job kind of thing. But the technology definitely helps you filter out applicants early on and also engage with them almost instantly when they come to you.
And just touching on again, I guess technology and I guess like a Tanda and Domino's. We've obviously had lots of experience now working with a Domino's and sort of fine tuning, the project better and better. Anthony, is there anything like in the QSR space that you see at the moment that could change, how we're using technology at the moment?
I think a lot of it will come down to automation. I think things will get more and more automated. There's more and more learnings to be had. Looking at the Tanda integration, we came from an Excel spreadsheet to being able to roll out this essentially this product that people could do things with rosters that they didn't think were possible, can do calculations they never thought were possible. That's just the start. I think it's only going to get further. I think the things that we haven't seen yet is how time and attendance programs such as Tanda will be able to not only create your roster for you, but also identify which team members are best suited for that role or best suited for your business. Or not only that, can also help identify training gaps. And I think that's some of the future of this, especially in QSR in particular, and how we can evolve as a business more. So, you're dealing with all kinds of increases in labour and so on and so forth, and have products that can help you be a lot smarter how you do it. And I think that's the future, and I think that's something that's really uncovered at the moment. It's not really out there, and I think that's the next thing to come through.
Awesome. We'll just move over onto teams now. So we've talked about culture a fair bit today and yesterday as well. Obviously, working in QSR, it's very much you're like a sports team almost to a certain degree. If you're working together, you win basically. So do you guys have a favorite methods for training your employees, like say from your first day right onto management? Is there a process or a philosophy that you follow?
To be honest, not really. I usually I play off the person. You find out who the person is. If someone's a shy person and you're throwing them in front of a whole bunch of people straight away is probably not the best approach. So I find I just sort of play off the person and see how they react and what they do and learn from them and be able to basically design what I'll be doing to help get them ready based on their personalities.
I think it happens in QSR a fair bit. You'll get somebody who you hire them, they get really good, they want to move up, or they want to put their hand up or say, hey, can I be a shift runner, can I be a manager? How do you manage expectations around that, especially if, say, maybe that position's not available? Because obviously I think in this space in particular, people really want to go for it when they want to, and maybe it's just not possible in your store. How do you like manage that relationship with these kinds of people when you just can't deliver on what they're asking for?
Oh, never say no.
Never
I don't
say
think
no.
there's ever a no answer to that. I think there is always an opportunity, and I think it just depends on the person. Just because there's no opportunity right there in that second, in that moment, doesn't mean there won't ever will be. If there's something that you see that's lacking, well then they might go, if someone's willing to want to take that next step, then they're willing to learn if they have a gap in their training or in their learning or their understanding on how that role should work. So take them on that journey. Those people are usually the most valuable to your company because they're the ones that will help breed the best culture, have the same passion as you. They want to achieve. So they're the ones that I think that need to be nurtured the most to be able to achieve bigger and better things.
Your thoughts, Dave?
I'm a big believer that leadership is a lot more than a title. If just because you don't get given a title of shift runner or team manager or area, whatever, it doesn't mean that you can't perform that role and you can't like push yourself to be better in that area. And if you push yourself, I mean, eventually something's going to open up somewhere. And if the company values you and what you're doing, something will open up. So I think that like waiting for and expecting a title to change what you do day to day is not going to work. But if you kind of do what you want your title to be, you'll eventually move into that.
So basically act as if, essentially.
Yeah.
Cool. I might just check the app for any questions, if anybody's posted any. No? 15 minutes left? Okay, great. Just going to get my app here. Sorry, guys. Okay, got a couple of questions. So got one from Liam. Anthony, you and many senior leaders in Domino's have been with the business for a while. If workforce success has engaged employees adding value for a long time, what has contributed to having you stay? Oh, good question.
Very good question. I think there's a few things that have contributed to having me stay. I think that one of the things about QSR is it's and being a high volume mentality is that it's fast paced. It's always changing. You don't have the you can't be like a big organisation like a big bank or a BHP where it has lots of bureaucracy, where it moves quite slow. With QSR, you need to be on your feet all the time. You've always got to be on to the next thing. You have to move quite quickly and quite fast and be very, very agile. Be able to, if things fail, drop them and move on. If things succeed, great, move on to the next thing. And I think that's what's helped me stay and helped a lot of the leadership team stay as long as they have, because it's so dynamic. It is never the same. It is always changing. I mean, I never thought when I was making dough that I'd be working on a project where we'll be taking pictures of pictures and sending them to customers, working on GPS tracking technology. And that's what's kept me there for so long. I think this kind of innovation that is just the beginning of what the QSR industry can achieve.
How about you, Dave? You were working in McDonald's for a long period of time, like 5 years. What kept you there for so long?
Honestly, the challenges. Like you were saying, it's a very dynamic place. I mean, I'm a problem solver by nature, so you can almost never solve the problem of how to get people like great quality food really quickly until it's instant, right? And so trying to work on that. There's never a dull day. It's always different, and there's always a challenge and always a problem to try and solve. And I love that, and I still love it. And I mean, I'm just doing it in a different way now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think this space in particular does teach you a good, quick problem solving and a sense of urgency to that as well, which I think can lack in a lot of other industries where maybe it's not so necessary. I got a question from Adam. How do you think your experience working directly in a QSR role has helped your more technical roles now?
I think thinking quickly on my feet, like being able to have a situation thrown at me and hopefully try and come up with an adequate solution, even if it's not the best solution, a somewhat right solution really quickly. And also like the determination and that kind of morale set that you get from having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning as a 16-year-old and after you've just been at a house party. It's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. definitely been in those situations. Also, I think the customers, I think engaging with customers, I mean, especially with IT, I'm sure anyone who works in IT knows that you're forever in customer service because there's always an end user that you're servicing. It's why we do what we do. We build programs, we do infrastructure, we do things to cater for a client, which is an end user or a customer. And I think that's for me one of the biggest takeaways. I literally have spent the last 18 years dealing with customers. If they're not customers out in the public, my own colleagues, end users who use what I've built or created, servicing those clients. And I'm sure, I know Dom and I know Liam have dealt with me as an annoying customer and helped soothe my pain. And so I think you're forever doing that when if you work in any technical environment, you're forever servicing customers. I think that for me is the biggest learning.
It's good. Just touching on customers in such a competitive market, how important is customer loyalty from Dan?
I think it's very important. I think that you need to be able to be continually servicing your customers and keeping them loyal. Like, you want to be able to make them feel appreciative of their service, and you want them to not only come back, you only want them to talk about it with their friends, encourage it when they go. So I think that's really important. And I think the key is building relationships with your customers, especially now in the new paradigm of technology. Customers want real-time feedback. So it's not as simple as writing an email, waiting a couple of days for someone to get back to you. They want to know instantly, I'm upset, or I'm happy, or I'm sad, or this is a great product. They want to get that instant rapport with the business. And I think things with the GPS technology, with the driver tracking, where you can see who's delivering your pizza, with all of our social media teams that are able to action things on request, is I think is part of it.
Have you seen like a direct, direct outcome of your own experiences with following through with I think the philosophy with Domino's is give the customer what they want and then give them something extra. I'm not sure if Macca's is kind of like the same.
It's not written down, but
it's not written down.
It's like
yeah.
I resonate with that. That's
yeah. So personally yourself, have you seen increases in sales from particular campaigns or something that you've done personally to try and spark that customer loyalty, or try and let your customers know that, hey, we care about you and your service, or your you buying our products, basically your money essentially. I
think a lot of it comes down to how an individual employee treats an individual customer, because that experience for the customer, an employee is serving thousands of people, and that customer is being served by one employee. So really the way that employee, whether you had a shit day at home or whatever, coming in and putting a smile on your face and making that customer feel special is really great for them. And that, to me, is what drives the brand loyalty the most, because they don't... obviously, you want them to associate themselves with the brand, but they also really resonate with that employee and want to come back to that employee. And then hopefully next time they come back, even if it's not that employee, they get the same experience, and you kind of broaden what their outlook on the brand is as a whole, rather than just individual people inside it.
Yeah, cool. It is a pretty tricky a line to follow, I guess, because as you mentioned before, there's so many numbers in QSR. At the end of the night, you're going to be sending all of your numbers to the person above you, day in and day out. So how do you keep the momentum going? So there's so much. You've got your food control. You got to watch out for your labour. There's so much going on. Maybe the oven or whatever turns off in the middle of peak, and things get pretty crazy. So keeping that in mind, how do you keep the whole team motivated to do that? Because it's easy to say that as a manager, because at the end of the day, it's your name and numbers that's going up to all the higher ups. Is that just a metrics thing for you, to get your employees to work towards, or?
I think every QSR number has numbers that they live and breathe by the numbers, and I think that it's just about owning those numbers and about understanding. The minute that you don't care about those numbers is the minute everything falls away. So it's about keeping that. It's not really pressure. If you start putting pressure on someone for numbers, then they lose focus on that. It all becomes about that personal, it becomes very personal, and then they think that they have to do it, and they forget about that it's a team, and that they forget about that it's a business, and there's a customer experience that goes with it. So I think it's about, first and foremost, just being happy with what you're trying to achieve first, and then from that it actually creates its own set. From that it creates its own dynamic, it creates its own numbers that can achieve from that, because once you are happy, then you can start achieving goals, and you can start focusing on what you can do better and hitting targets. I mean, gamification's massive. I mean, people love to be competitive, and that's huge. And but also keeping it so you're not doing it at the detriment of the business or at the customers. So I think that's quite key with that.
Yep, cool. Alrighty, I've got one more question. So this is from Kelvin. Oh, sorry, Dom, actually. So sorry. I saw your photo and just assumed. Anyway, given your understanding of the QSR sector, who do you feel are the late adopters of technology within their business? That's a good one.
I think there's
naming names is always dangerous, I think.
I think that there's a few other QSR industries out there that I think are missing opportunities. I think they could do more with for their product. Other industries who might sell sandwiches, or other pizza industries, or other places that sell chicken or some other stuff. I think there's bigger opportunity there for them if they adapted technologies.
So not saying any names there, Anthony. Cool.
I think I tend to agree that there are definitely other industries that QSR has always been very driven for quick service, right? So they've really oriented themselves around that, but that's given them a lot of really cool insights, I feel, into how customers behave and how much people spend and how to try and drive certain aspects. And I think that other industries could definitely learn a lot from how QSR operates to really leverage their different metrics within their business. I don't know if within QSR everyone's kind of doing very similar things now. So I think that people outside QSR should look in and see what they can take, and at the same time QSR should look out and see what they can take from other people. I think that you need to use what's around you.
Yeah, that was good. Got another question from Michael Smith. This is a good one. So what works better in QSR, Iron Fist or Velvet Glove? In other words, how much tolerance for rule breakers? It's a good one.
I think it's all about the individual person. There are definitely some people who operate better if you're more direct, and there are other people who operate better if you give them a bit of leeway. And there was a talk on the first day about giving people that hope and letting people break the rules when it's necessary. If a customer is 5 cents short, you're going to lose more money waiting for them to find 5 cents than just giving them a burger for 5 cents less. So, knowing when you can and can't break the rules is very important.
Yeah, no, I definitely 100% agree. I think it does agree. It does depend on the person and depend on the situation and how that all unfolds. I know that for me personally, that if I didn't have some direct conversations, I probably wouldn't be where I am. I mean, again, I think it's definitely personal based, and you need to read the situation. Part of the job being a manager is being able to have a form of HR in your role, and you need to understand that.
Nice. Got a question from Jess Stone, actually. So this is probably a good one for Dave. On the topic of loyalty, how does McDonald's track loyalty? In Domino's, we obviously have phone numbers and et cetera, et cetera. But with McDonald's being a drive-through restaurant, Jess is interested to know how you track your type of customers as well as their frequency.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you have your regulars that you get to know, but you can't really, that's not scalable. You can't scale that. And I think this is where technology really comes in. Now there's all the online systems to order. They're doing deliveries through McDelivery and Uber Eats, and that is pretty much the only way for them to be able to track this sort of stuff. Because when you have people just flying by, you can't target them the same way. I think Domino's is in a very fortunate position where most people are ordering ahead before they get to the store, handing over some of their details. And so with that, you can kind of see how they interact with the store. And I think McDonald's is trying to get there using technology and trying to encourage people to be trackable, I suppose.
I think it would be quite difficult for McDonald's, considering, I guess, like the density of your sales. You know, like you sell like 1 million cheeseburgers or something in a minute, I guess. But sorry,
Not quite, but like
not quite. Yes. But in saying that, do you think you know, maybe like a businesses like McDonald's would be able to easily adapt to maybe like a more Domino's approach?
I think that getting to a Domino's approach will have to involve online ordering, because there's no real way to gather that. I think there's some other cool things they could do, and I'm no longer there, so I don't really have an insight into what they're doing right now. But as a software engineer, I kind of think of things like a car is coming through drive-through. Most people drive the same car. You can see it's that car based on a number plate or whatever. So you can kind of see, if you're just looking to track loyalty, there's definitely ways you can figure out who people are. I just don't know how much you can do before it gets creepy, and then if it's creepy, how valuable is it to have that? I don't personally know the value of having a loyal customer versus a customer. Like it's, I mean, it's obviously important.
Just before.
Yes, no, it's hard to quantify it, so it's hard to know how much to do before it becomes unnecessary.
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. Time is out, but thanks everybody for joining, and big thank you to Anthony and Dave for